Hello, everyone. We are now in the second video, and I'm going to talk about the major tendencies in popular romance. When I say major tendencies, it's usually something related to what constitutes the genre. These tendencies, these four elements that I will talk to you about, are what create the popular romance genre. And by now, of course, you know very well that uh, there might be unlimited number of topics for popular romance. However, the genre is popular romance, and the genre has certain tendencies and limitations. And what I'm going to talk about now are the tendencies that make up the popular romance genre. We will not be talking about the topics at all for now. Okay, uh, the genre of popular romance has these four tendencies that we can summarize as F4 or F. The four elements here are fantasy, first, and the second, fulfillment of your wish. That's the second. However, fantasy and wish fulfillment tend to be discussed as one package because they are quite inseparable, to be honest. And the third one is the element formula, the formula, sorry. And finally, the fourth element is the femininity and feminism. Femininity and feminism here are two different ideas, but they tend to be discussed as one because, in fact, they are inseparable. Okay, now let's go to the first tendency, which is the fantasy and wish fulfillment. The popular romance genre is famous for starting with a promise that there is an ideal situation. The instance of this ideal situation is when the main character gets to be with his or her dream girl or man. In most popular romance work, we find heterosexual couples in which a woman becomes interested in a man or a man becomes interested in a woman. And the ideal situation is when these two people become together. However, as we read on, we will find that there are so many obstacles in their relationship that achieving this ideal situation is somewhat impossible. You, as a reader, start to believe that it's going to be very difficult to achieve the situation. In fact, it might be impossible to achieve that situation. However, of course, deep down, you wish that this ideal situation, which you have been promised, can be achieved. And after going through conflicts and climaxes, you get to a critical point where turns out that the ideal situation is possible. Turns out that the ideal situation is what they are fated to be. And then usually in watching movies, we start to cry at the time. And this is a very, very common formula when you read popular romance. And Hollywood uses this formula in their movies. And we know this formula as the 3-act structure with the 8-sequence set. If you if you are interested in knowing about the 3-act structure, I can refer you to another video. But basically, it starts with a promise of an ideal situation. And then you will see a lot of obstacles to achieving that ideal situation. And finally, after a very critical moment, you will get to this ideal situation, which makes you cry. Okay, that's the first one, fantasy and fulfillment. In the 20th century popular romance, We can also relate the notion of fantasies and fulfillment we hear with the social situation. You'll be amazed to see that in the 1930s, many of the popular romance works were about a high society, luxurious living. And it was good for the fantasy of people, for the imagination of people, because during the 1930s, there was the Great Depression in the United States. And in the 40s, during World War II, we see in popular romance works in the United States, people start to believe that white people and black people could be together. Why is it necessary for them to be together? It's because at that time, it was wartime and the government wished people to join hand in hand to win the war in the Pacific and in Europe. That's why white people and black people, which had been well separated in many big cities, could come together and do a common effort. In the 50s, after war, the economy got better in the United States, and then traveling the world is important. Is well, not everyone could afford it, but the idea of traveling around the world, solving cases in exotic countries, becomes something that you can associate with. It fills you with the the excitement of being free, being able to see the world, and enjoying the peace. You remember that this is after the World War II. And we can find stories like this in the James Bond series, for example, and many others. Okay. And later on in the 60s, we started to see popular romance works in which female character start to become stronger and start to have more agency in their relationship with the man as well as in their day-to-day life. And that was during the rise of feminism. Yep, this tendency became stronger in the 70s with the rise of the flower generation and what in the United States people call as women's liberation, in which people, mostly women, started to feel that they're worthy of more than just what they had been getting from the society. And in the 80s, we started to see individualism, in which women start to define themselves not by the men around them, and so on. And the second one is the formula, the notion of formula. The notion of formula here is related to how the stories in novels are presented. Usually, formula here can be found in what we call as formula novels. The formula novels are usually serial novels in which a story starts with one and ends with a different situation. And in the next installment, we will also find that ideal situation becoming a situation that is conflicting again. And it goes on and on until the end. You will get to this ideal situation again. In Indonesia, we might know this in Anak Jalanan or Cinta Fitri or Tersanjung or other, well, sinetron or soap opera. Now, the last important point about popular romance is the tension between feminine and feminist, between femininity and feminism. What do we mean when we talk about femininity or feminine? Femininity is the notion of how women should look like, how women should behave, and how women should be presented. And usually it's from the perspective of the society. So a feminine woman is a woman that suits with the idea, the stereotypical idea of women that the society have as graceful, loving pink, loving flowers, wearing skirts, wearing gowns, and so on. While the other one, feminist, feminist is a label for those who believe in the equality of gender or equal rights for women, if you use word web to define you. And those who support the notion of equality of gender will no longer be bound by the idea of women that the society wants. Women can do as they please, can appear as they like, and can define themselves not by the men around them. And the image of feminism that we usually have in the social media is a strong woman who can do anything. We can do it, regardless of your gender. It is different from the notion of women that traditional societies have. For example, in Indonesia, we have the role of women, not in Indonesia, in Java. Many people still believe that women should be able to dress up, to maca, and then to cook, masak, and to have children or mana. Yeah, the 3M here is, I believe, not really accepted by most women today, especially women who value themselves uh, as being able to do anything, not bound by the three notions. So these are the two ideas that keep appearing in popular romance lately. We see the image of women being soft spoken, being graceful, being beautiful. But on the other hand, we also see women being characters that define themselves, characters that determine what happens to the relationship, and many other things in life. In short, women start to have more agency in popular romance. And yeah, that's the dilemma of popular romance. On one hand, it still wants to show female characters as graceful, beautiful, caring, and wearing dresses. But on the other hand, it also wants to present the female characters as strong women, as determinant women, and as having agency. All right. So, what are the tendencies again? I hope you can review the tendencies yourselves now. And that's all. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.